Hello indie game fans, this set of the best indie games of 2023 comes to us from you, the community, whether it be through YouTube comments, YouTube community posts, tweets, emails, or wherever you interact with me, being games which I perhaps did not spend enough time with, did not click 100% with, or just slipped my mind, where I want to record these down for posterity so that I can return to this list 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line and go, oh, remember that game? With my heartfelt appreciation going to each and every one of you that leaves a comment, since this community is pretty awesome. So the games begin with Gravity Circuit, a title that has cropped up during Game of the Year discussions and has been very positively received, in which this fluid melee focused title is awesome, having some fantastic use of colours as well, with this being compared to Mega Man 0 and X, and might even have surpassed those games and is going under the radar for sure. Here's a fascinating title from developer Daniel Benmurgui, who made the underrated Fidel Dungeon Rescue, which I adore, so his next title, Storyteller, is of interest. It's a puzzle game in which you're picking characters to place into spots on a comic strip to tell the story, having to figure out which character or item goes where so that it matches up to the prompt given to you. Unsurprisingly, this was picked up by Annapurna, who published the game, with more narrative-focused titles being their speciality, and this delivers on all aspects, where there have been free content updates, which makes this an even better package. Here's an awesome first-person shooter that is very popular, in which Trepang Square has you playing as a super soldier broken out from a black site, now having to unleash all kinds of hell on your enemies. Most interestingly, this has vibes similar to First Encounter Assault Recon or Fear, with the supernatural-ish vibes as well as ample use of slow-mo, with the game being one of the best looking titles of the year. If you love first-person shooters but want something different from the multiplayer experience of Call of Duty or the boomer shooter vibes of indie throwbacks, then this will be the title for you. I'm not the biggest horror or adventure game person, so you can imagine why this horror adventure game makes the fan favourite list, since STASIS Bone Totem is a very well crafted one of these. It is in the same series as STASIS from 2015, although there's no need to have played the earlier title, with a new set of characters and a new setting, and while this game looks like a Fallout 1 isometric CRPG due to the visuals and the camera angle, it is in fact an adventure game through and through. You control 3 characters who are exploring an underwater abandoned oil rig in the Pacific Ocean, and since these characters are scavengers by trade, they had the initial objective of exploring to see what is valuable and can be salvaged. Of course, horrible things have happened, which a corporation is trying to keep under wraps, being quite the intense experience and has gotten people raving about this game.
Out in the Indian Ocean is a tiny desert island where a multiverse-spanning drama is unfolding.
A smaller title that should have been in the Hidden Gems list but slipped my mind is 24 Killers, so thanks to Dwayne Dufresne in the comments for reminding me, in which this is an adventure RPG similar to Moon RPG, which is set on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. You play as a super intelligence named Home, which is bound to a soldier's corpse by an alien, so how's that for an intriguing setup? If you're not familiar with Moon RPG, this was one of the primary inspirations of Undertale, of a game that broke conventional rules about video games and was spoken about as an anti-RPG, with this game looking to be in a similar vein. Co-op Jump King sounds like a nightmare, and yes, Brett and Fred is exactly that, in which 2 penguins who are tethered together must make their way up the mountain to reach the snowy summit. Of course, single-player frustration platformers like Jump King or Getting Over It are bad enough, which makes a co-op version even more devious and challenging, but there's also the option to play solo, which replaces your partner with a rock. They've been adding stuff to the game since launch, such as online multiplayer and even new songs in the Super Duper Ultra Redux mixtape update from September 2023, definitely being a game of interest.
Do not give in to the darkness. Do not give in to the darkness. Do not give in to the darkness. You will find what you are searching for within the mountain.
As a noted fan of clean pens, horror games are not my jam, but I know some of you love them, with this entry coming to us from Patreon member and frequent commenter on the videos, Rick Klinite, in which Bramble the Mountain King is a grim horror adventure title based on Nordic fables, but of the dark and grisly kind instead of the sanitized fairy tale versions. Isn't it funny how the original Grimm Brothers fairy tales are kind of messed up, and the same thing appears to be present in the Nordic region, in which the monster designs here really give me the creeps. Another horror title of interest that is under the radar is You Will Die Here Tonight, a game that honestly slipped my mind as well, so I'm making things right by putting it here. It's a survival horror title like Resident Evil 1, set in a location known as Breckenridge Hall, in which you control members of an elite military force who are separated in this location, each having to find a way to survive against the monsters. However, more curiously, combat switches to first person, which has a similar vibe to arcade shooters like House of the Dead, so there's the twist already, with the decisions that you make carrying on to affect the rest of the game even if certain characters die. Secretly, one of the most successful games of the year is Sailing Era, which I believe comes to us from a Chinese developer and is an open world sailing RPG with an anime art style. If you played the Uncharted Waters games, you will know what to expect, since this has you leading a crew and exploring the world, sailing from port to port, buying low and selling high in order to fund your adventures. Interestingly, the world is fully simulated, so that means it is scaled to a real-world equivalent, with monsoon, currents and weather being part of the factors that you have to deal with. There is, of course, naval combat with ships, but you're also able to board vessels and take part in hand-to-hand combat. They have since added one paid DLC and one free update to the game, which introduces new characters, ports, quest lines and more, being an epic scale adventure not to be missed. Another title that is very popular is Voidigo, as mentioned by Nicolas Riva7X, since this action roguelite with a monster hunter twist looks kind of bog standard but can be seen as a spiritual successor to Nuclear Throne. You play as a Void Hunter who enters each realm with the intention of hunting down the boss, getting loot and weapons along the way to help you in your quest. Bosses here can stalk and hunt you down, but can also run away and escape when injured, instead of stupidly hanging around the boss room the entire time, with the animations and how things just explode really being quite satisfying. Yes, there have been a number of farming games over the years, to the extent that people seem quite worn out by the genre, but if that's you, perhaps Sunhaven might be of interest, one that adds in enough fantasy elements to have it feel quite different as compared to Stardew Valley, for example. Set in a world of magic and monsters, as a new arrival to Sunhaven, work your way up by developing your farm and selling crops so that you have enough resources to become the hero to fight back against an encroaching darkness. The interesting part is that you can create your own character from a selection of fantasy races, see RPG style, and can build and farm in 3 different cities all at the same time. The expected farming, fishing, animal raising, mining, combat, festivals, and even relationship systems are all there, but with it being untethered to the real world, expands the sheer variety of this title, even having co-op support being one of the must-plays in the genre. Hands down, one of the best roguelite first-person shooters of the year is Roboquest, a game that released out of early access and wasn't a surprise since I saw its success coming from quite a distance away, since they nailed it even while in early access and momentum was just building like a snowball rolling down a mountain leading up to its 1.0 release. You play as a guardian battling hostile robots with excellent gunplay, fun weapons, a cel-shaded art style that kind of looks like Borderlands and even has 2-player co-op support, so what's not to love? I also want to give a special mention to A Space for the Unbound, coming out of Indonesian developer Mojiken, and tells a story that only they can tell since it is set in rural Indonesia in the 1990s, but with a supernatural twist. Things are not as they seem when two high school sweethearts experience the end of the world together. The narrative is intriguing, and I've seen more than one person say that this game made them ugly cry at the end, being a testament to how powerful the medium of video games really is. Did you know that Steam has officially made Boomer Shooter a tag? A game that is perhaps the shining example of this is Turbo Overkill, a game that gives 0 Fs when it comes to attitude and action, but manages to do it without being crass, which is impressive restraint given how these games tend to go. Our hero returns to his hometown only to find it overtaken by an AI and its forces, now having to go all out to destroy it and reclaim his home. The boomer shooter aspect is present in the fast-paced action and visuals, and more interestingly, the insanity of the weapons available, since our hero has chainsaw legs, rocket launchers, and even a chainsaw bike. However that works, but it definitely goes hard and is one of the greats. If you're a fan of the Slay the Spire style deck builders but want something different, how about Astrea 6-sided oracles, a roguelike dice builder instead, which has an interesting visual style that stands out, in which you're attempting to save the star system but have to manage both purification and corruption in order to do so. The former can damage enemies or heal yourself, while the latter will damage yourself but heal enemies, but you get access to special abilities the more you are corrupted, leading to an interesting risk-reward system, and with 6 characters and 20 support sentinels to choose from, has plenty of variety. I'm pretty sure that most of you have not heard of Volcano Princess, so if that's you, leave Princess in the comments below, in which this is a time management parenting simulator game like the Princess Maker series of games, in which you're raising a little girl and preparing her to be the next monarch. So, you might be asking, why the hell is this of interest? Well, it has a stunning 26,000 Steam reviews as of recording and an overwhelmingly positive rating, which, as a point of comparison, is 4,000 more than Dredge. So this has also sold a stupid number of copies, but yet no one seems to be talking about it. You're essentially choosing activities for your daughter so that she can level up her stats, affecting her future and how she will interact with the citizens, with, of course, multiple endings. Even more amazing is that this is from a 2-person team out of China, and it's absolutely crazy how successful this game is. A game which I thoroughly enjoyed but kind of fell off is Wild Frost, a roguelike deck builder with tactical elements, since you have to place cards down on the grid, having interesting systems to wrap your head around, and amazing art as well. An endless winter has enveloped the world, and the last bastion of the world is named Snow Dwell, which is your home base, in which adventurers set out on expeditions into the frost, so that they can find a way to banish it forever. I like the charm system in this, in which you're adding trinkets and ability modifiers to existing cards, but recognize that it may be a little too RNG for people's likings, which did make me eventually fall off, but the twist in the final battle and the addition of new free content through updates makes this of note. Roguelite Hotline Miami can summarize Ultro, since this is a similar kind of ultra-violent top-down shooter and even has the character and enemies holding the guns in a similar fashion, but of course strips out all the colours of the 1980s Miami from its inspiration. However, while similar visually and in style, the developer has adapted it into a roguelite, so no more one-hit kills or death, but rather health meters being a thing, having permanent meta progression and more interesting enemy designs, so you cannot say that this is a simple clone. Storytelling is similarly vague, but for a roguelite adaptation of the indie classic, this is a pretty good attempt. My wife is a huge Slay the Spire fan and plays it pretty intensely with how fast she can play the cards, not even having to read the descriptions after being so used to them, so of course I recommended Cobalt Core to her and she cannot stop playing as well. Similarly, this is a roguelike deck builder, but in which you're piloting a ship, in which you're playing cards to damage your enemy, and where the energy system is present, as is the telegraphed enemy attacks. However, the twist is that positioning matters, so you can literally move out of the way of enemy attacks, and with asteroids in play, adds an added layer of strategy. Additionally, you can take multiple crew members on board, which contributes differently, and also has a time loop structure in which you're unlocking memories for each of the characters as you complete runs of the game, which fleshes out the narrative, being a different kind of deck builder. I have never played King's Field, which is probably why this game didn't hit as hard for me, since by all accounts, Lunacid appears to be a King's Field-like, instead of a Souls-like, a first-person title that draws parallels to FromSoft's earlier game. It's a first-person dungeon crawler with an accidentally done throwback look, set in a similar cosmic horror kind of grimdark world, where you have been banished to a moonlit subterranean world due to your crimes and have to go deeper and deeper below. It hides plenty of secrets, and there's fun to be had in the exploration, despite the relatively simple combat, but this game has atmosphere for days and might be of interest. I've had a number of people vouch for this game, including one of the developers making Bo Path of the Teal Lotus, in which Chants of Senna is a puzzle game all about language set in the Tower of Babel, in which you're attempting to get the different tribes of people to start communicating once again. It looks gorgeous in an almost Sable kind of way, with the puzzling out of symbols and what they mean being very interesting, and shares similarities to Return of the Obra Dinn. Where 2023 really has been a fantastic year for puzzle games, find more of them in my Hidden Gems recap video as well. I love my farming sims, which is why Moonstone Island gets a mention, primarily because it was edged out by bigger games, but was not small enough to be considered a hidden gem. So here we are with the pixel art, monster taming, deck building, farming, life sim, action adventure, exploration title. Yes, that's a bunch of words, but this game, put simply, is awesome and a must play for farming game fans, where I love the monster designs and pixel art in particular. A beautifully executed roguelite city builder is Against the Storm, a game that is set in a world of endless rain in which you're struggling to survive. The loop comprises of gathering resources and constructing buildings to fend off the next calamity, in which you're constructing a chain of settlements as you attempt to make progress on the larger goal of reclaiming the wilderness. The scenario by scenario aspect of the game is neat, since you don't need to spend too long on any one city, being able to learn and change your playstyle as you go along. But even if a particular settlement does fall, there are meta progression elements that give you just enough of a boost to keep playing, resulting in one of the best and most popular games of the year, which, like Roboquest, was a pretty obvious pick since this developer has been crushing it ever since early access. A no-brainer pick if you love Metroidvanias is Laika Age Through Blood, where I've gotten at least 6 comments in my Game of the Year videos saying that this game should have been in those lists, where this self-styled Motovania is certainly one to play. You play as a mother coyote on a path of vengeance, riding around a post-apocalyptic wasteland on a motorbike and wreaking havoc in the process. The motorcycle-based combat is of course the most interesting part, in which the wheelies and sick flips are not just for show, but can lead to very deadly and very bloody combat, getting on the list for how unique it is as a concept. From the opening seconds of this trailer, sure, this game looks cool, being a stickman fighting game with intense action, but then comes the reveal that your only move is hustle. It's a turn-based game in which you're preempting enemy movements and choosing the right counter move, which then plays out in real time, but a turn-based fighting game is insane as a concept and was absolutely robbed of the most innovative gameplay Steam award, so rectify that by supporting this developer. If you love indie games and want more, then you have to watch this video on Hidden Gems of 2023.